Without further ado, let's get right into it. Hi, here on BodoScien we will dissect and analyze what made the Uncharted series so unforgettable. Starting of course with the inception E3 2006, where Uncharted Drake's fortune was unveiled and where the magic began. The main things that make a great game are story, world design, sound, mechanics, and of course characters. But obviously there are great and iconic games that strive to reach only one of those main pillars. This isn't it. Uncharted excelled in many different categories, and we're gonna analyze each one, starting with the characters. Of course, Uncharted wasn't the first video game to ever tell a story about an explorer that wandered into the unknown to find treasures. Lara Croft did that almost 10 years before Nathan Drake, but if we leave the nostalgia of Tomb Raider behind, even if I love Tomb Raider of course, and we analyze the story, Uncharted has so much more to offer. Undoubtedly, the characters and protagonists are what sets the two games apart, and if you look at them side by side, we can see that the differences are more than obvious. Take these two scenes for example, Uncharted on the left and Tomb Raider on the right. The differences are clear, and you can see that Lara Croft is a lonely wolf who claims that
I work better alone.
while Drake is friendly, catchy, he's someone you can relate to. He has friends that not only spice things up, but help Drake along the way and make the experience not feel like a chore, but like a fun adventure, as it should obviously be, it being an adventure game.
How much trouble could one girl be?
Drake is just an average Joe, and that is what makes him so unique, a likable fella that makes you think, I could really be like him. But the truly important aspect is not Drake himself, it's the relationship between him and others that makes the game stand out. We see glimpses of humor, of love, of sacrifice that we wouldn't otherwise see in other games. The characters are so well written, you forget you're playing a game by the end of it. Life is what makes Drake stand out. When asked about this in an IGN interview, Nolan North, the voice actor that played Nathan Drake, said, "Yeah, and I remember them, the directors, encouraging me, saying, just infuse some of your own personality into it." And the key word here is personality. That is what sets Drake apart. Here is what designer of Uncharted had to say. We did draw a lot of inspiration from the genre of classic adventure stories for Nathan's character, from great adventure movies, books, and comics, but he's really a very contemporary and unique person that you can recognize as coming from our modern world. I think we all know that dude, the kind of guy that you might meet backpacking in Thailand, who's intelligent but likable, digs a cool adventure or lark, and always has a smart remark ready. Maybe he's also just a little bit prone to screwing up over something important at a critical moment, or to saving the day in an unlikely way. That's Nathan Drake. He's 100% original for a video game. End quote. And that is what sets him apart. The fact that we're not staring in front of a climbing puppet for 6 hours, but of a man with his own personality. This of course extending to his mates as well. The main one that I want to talk about is his pal, Sully. We know nothing about it, but just as Drake himself, he's full of life and humor.
Right, Nate, just pretend for a minute that I don't really care about any of that stuff and cut to the chase, would you?
Man only interested in the climax. He must be a real hit with the ladies.
Never had any complaints.
And within only 10 minutes of him interacting with Nate, we already feel attached to him. He feels like a father figure, or maybe like a funny uncle. There is something about him that we can't quite grasp, and we would have to wait 2 more games in order to find out the true status of their acquaintance in Uncharted 3, but that is another game for another episode. But great characters can be found in many other games, so we have to dig even deeper to find what truly made Uncharted an icon of its time and beyond. And with this we enter the second pillar, story. Let's pause for a second. I have to be honest, the first time I got Uncharted back when it was released, I bought it about 2 o'clock, and by the time I had dinner, I finished the game, no breaks, no nothing, and that's just due to the fact that it had an engaging, awesome storyline. Okay, let's cut back to the video. What made Uncharted so hard to put down was my natural desire inside of myself to want to find out what will come next, what will he do, what will happen to his mates, how will the story progress. And there are 2 scenes connected to each other that made me so interested in the plot, and here we will rewind back to Sully. Remember when I said we know nothing about it, but just as Drake himself, he's full of life and humor, and within only 10 minutes of him interacting with Nate, we already feel attached to him. Well, the moment Sully got shot, I felt heartbroken, just as surprised as Drake, devastated. They treated everything like kids, like a funny adventure, but death was real. And the moment he died, I felt awful, even though we known Sully for only 10 minutes, maybe 20 in the game. That is where the story took a turn. Here everything changed, and only 10 minutes later, Elena said,
What are you doing?
You really need to watch this. Just...
What?
Don't forget the stuff on the dock.
And... Hello.
And there and then I felt filled with joy. But 1 second after I realized, just as Elena said, Sully might be a traitor. That we only knew Sully for 10-20 minutes. And what we thought of as a father figure could have just been a contractor, or an assassin, or who knows, no one knew on their first playthrough. The 2 connected scenes changed the course of the game, the atmosphere, and the emotions the player felt when going through these levels. What became a fun adventure turned into a devastating death, and then a great mystery, and perhaps a story of betrayal. The rest I won't spoil, but these 2 scenes are what made the story not feel linear and boring, because life never goes to plan, and real life takes turns. Later games will improve on the story aspect, blowing Uncharted 1 out of the water. And this leads to the next point. There is no Uncharted 1. There is only Uncharted Drake's Fortune, because no one ever knew there would be sequels. Everyone put huge efforts into one game. The story had a beginning and an end, all in the same game. The plot wasn't drawn out, watered down. They put everything on the table and it showed. The game wasn't made like a TV show, where the story is stretched to fill multiple games. It was made like a standalone movie, where everything is captured and condensed into one piece. The game was both a technological masterpiece and, with its incredible motion capture, and of course, graphics. Words here are irrelevant. Just take a look for yourself between the competitors and Uncharted.
Celtic underworld, it's a little bit mental, isn't it?
I have no illusions that...
The motion capture was what set them apart. It was revolutionary, and it made the characters move like real humans and feel like them too. Here, it's what North had to say about it. I enjoyed this motion capture stuff. I think it's gonna be the future, and I think it's going to be even more popular for a video game to capture something that was so human, he just seemed so human and lifelike. And they were totally right, as indeed it became the future, and as time passed, every game including Uncharted became more and more realistic. Oh god, I can't wait to review Uncharted 4. Now moving away from sight, we reach sound design and music, and here the game does something that is often seen in movies. Let's see what made James Bond, Mission Impossible, and Star Wars so recognizable in terms of soundtrack. Repetition. The repetition of a base theme, and making more and more additions and adding more and more details, instruments, and twists to the same soundtrack, you create something familiar. The sense of home, the sense of excitement you get when the James Bond theme plays before a movie is just the same for Drake's theme that will be modified and iterated for the whole trilogy. Let's hear the main theme for the first game, and then in succession the second and third, respectively. As you were able to hear, the theme is mostly the same, but it is meant to mimic the story elements and the scenes in which the theme appears. And it's through this repetition that the soundtrack becomes something more than just a one-off song. Watch this Uncharted scene without any music, and with. The differences are clear, and even if you don't pick it up, your subconscious does, and the theme will imprint into your brain. The perfect cocktail of shooting, puzzles, story, and sound is what made it so hard for me to get bored of the game. Whenever I got tired of shooting people and monsters, the game rewarded me with a great cutscene followed by a puzzle that offered me so much satisfaction when completed. And the loop repeats and repeats until the game ends with a bang, as will all the sequels that will follow. Oh crap, I forgot something. The humor. And the game is full of it. From sarcastic comments,
It worked!
There he is! Up there! Get on the gun!
Oh boy.
to mild swear words like the one I just mentioned, to the pure stubbornness of Drake.
He just jumped! Count to 5? Just pull the cord! How hard could that be? Oh, crap!
The humor is the cherry on top of an already brilliant cake, and is the last aspect that ties it all together. So what did we learn from this episode? What makes a game unforgettable, and how can someone make their game memorable? Well, it is all about a perfect cocktail, a term that I will refer to often in this show. The perfect mixture of story, well-written characters, and awesome sound and level design that make it all so believable. And with this, we end the first episode of what will become an amazing show. And with this, we saw what made a game interesting, but in the future episode, we will see what made the entire franchise memorable. And just as the game always changes things up to keep us pinned to our screens, the following games try to improve and change aspects of the game. But it remains to be seen how successful the creators were in doing so. And with this, I wish you all happy playing.